Okay, so I just picked up that axle. I just got it all machined there. So I got it in the truck here. Why don't you hop along and we'll go check it out in the workshop. Just like hop right in the truck here. Well, fine, whatever. You can stand in the ditch there all day, I don't care. So here's the axle. It's gotten a lot shorter than it was last time. Remember in that first video I made a mark on the axle that showed where the center of the machine was in relation to the axle? Well, the mark is still there now, but that mark is now, it's now the center of this entire axle. So we have the yeah, see? So that's now the center of the machine and the center of this axle, so that both of the drive shafts will ultimately be the same length, which is what I wanted. So, but yeah, so when you saw the first part of the video there, they were machining the splines. They still had part of the stub here on the end here, which they had yet to machine off. And this groove here is part of the locking mechanism. I'll show you some little hubs that I bought here. That's these guys here. And they've got a spring-loaded collar that I can pull back, and inside there are some balls. As that collar slides forward, it slides over top of those balls, and it keeps those balls in this groove here, and that's how that collar is locked on there. So I'm going to ultimately end up machining the U-joint part of these collars off, and that's for another video, what's the story there, but it's all part of the axle. And these are the bearings I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how this kind of looks assembled here. Remember I was telling you that these ends here are going to get machined off, so the U-joint part will disappear later. That will be gone. But yeah, so this locking collar, it's got those balls on it I was telling you about. So if I push this forward, it's going to find the groove. See, and then it locks in place there. So I wanted to get this finished first because I wanted to mock it up onto the machine. I wanted to get it located there so I could see where the CV joints themselves will be, you know, whether they're here or whatever, because the A-arms themselves, I want to put that pivot point on the A-arm right over top of the CV joint itself, because I think if everything is pivoting at the same place, there's going to be less movement on the splines, which ultimately makes a freer, smoother moving suspension, especially when it's under load. So I got some more CV axles, and I want to show you some joints here. I did a bit of a digging to see what they look like on the inside. So in my first video there, I showed you guys these CV axles that I bought and that I want to modify yet. So I was kind of curious what's on the inside, so I pulled those boots back to look in there. Now, the last time I worked on a CV joint was for a four-wheel drive pickup on the front drive shaft, and they've got two U-joints side by side, and they're located or centered with a pin in between. But anyways, so this is kind of an ingenious setup here. You see, they've got a cup here, and it rotates within this cup. So, and there's splines here, so this shaft, it can pivot within this cup, and this cup itself can pivot within the outer cup. So there's balls here, and then there's grooves here. So if I move it, you're going to see all of that stuff move. See that? So that's why it's got so much flexibility. And then I was curious, what's the deal with the top one? Remember the one with that plunge joint in there? So I wanted to have a look in there. So this is what the other end looks like. It's very similar to the first one that I showed you. And this cup here, it can slide up and down inside this big outer cup here. So that's the plunge joint right there. And You know, otherwise it looks basically the same. But look at what happens. This end looks like it's already worn out before I even use it. Can you see the play right in here? Okay, I'll do that again. Watch this. See that? This is supposed to be a brand new axle. And my question is, why does it look like a worn out axle? You know? So fortunately I don't want to use that end anyways. But I did an angle measurement, kind of a quick one here, and I want to show you what I found. So I was kind of curious, how far can those CV joints flex? Because it seemed that there was a difference between one end and the other. So I flexed each end as far as it would go, and then I held a wire beside it and I bent it so that it would, you know, kind of follow the shape of the axle as it was completely flexed. And I did both ends, and then I took the two wires, and I was kind of curious what kind of difference there is. So you see that same axle, just different ends. One has a lot more flex than the other. Can you imagine if this was a 3-foot long axle, what kind of a difference it would make out there? So kind of interesting stuff. I thought I would give you a bit of a tour on what's going on here.